All right, and we are live with another episode of Mentor Minutes. Been away for the weekend. I realize I need to do some more of these because I keep getting questions on Thursdays and Fridays, and I have to wait till today to get to them online. So, with that being said, to start out with, yesterday, if you were on Facebook, you saw that I posted the next in the line of single-step leadership. If you haven't checked out these videos, the idea behind them is it's some of the actionable things that we get in these Mentor Minutes episodes. And it's one thing that you do every single week to improve your leadership. And over time, week in, week out, over time, that's going to have a huge effect on your leadership and on your career. So check out those single-step leadership videos. If you haven't done it already, just check out one simple step that's going to help you improve your leadership. That's the idea behind those. So with that said, and as we queue up some people here on this live session, I wanted to get to one of those questions that came in on Thursday after my my other sessions had ended. And it's a question that I think everybody can kind of relate to. And the question is, I've got a manager in training, and this particular individual doesn't particularly care to hear what they don't want to hear. They aren't motivated. They don't seem interested in the job. What can I do to motivate this individual? And so this is something that can be very specific. And what we're going to do in this case is tailor it to the individual. And so what I want you to do is when you have a demotivated individual, especially if there's somebody that's like in a manager in training role or a supervisor, and they're only hearing what they want to hear, they're not really engaged in what's going on. What you want to do in those cases is you want to get really clear on their WIFM, what's in it for me is. What is it that this manager in training wants to do? Do they want to be a vice president someday? Do they want to grow into another role, transfer to another division, whatever that happens to be? If they want to do any of those things, that's what you want to find out. Because then what you can do is you can tie what you're asking them to do, you can tie what they are doing right now to the fact that that's what's going to eventually lead to them accomplishing their goals. Now, what can happen in these cases is you don't actually get anything cool like I want to progress in the company, I want to transfer to the finance division eventually, I want to do this. What you also can get is, I'm just, I'm not really motivated. In that case, what's in it for them is to make things easier. So what you do is you tie what you're telling them to do, what their actions are, to how it's going to be easier for them. That can be a WIFM for them. So have the conversation with them, find out what their overall goals are. And what you do is you tie their current actions and what you're asking them to do and show them how doing those things will actually help them reach and accomplish their goals. That's the key to it for motivation. Justin has our first question today, and good to see you here again, Justin. I've taken over for a leader who was too soft, and the employees are not enjoying the more strict tactics I have put in place. How does a leader find the balance between soft and hard? Justin, the real answer to this is the why. That's where you find the balance. All right. Why is it that you are asking them to do these things that are difficult? What you also want to do is make sure that you're asking yourself the why and whether there is a better answer to that question than what you're doing right now. There does need to be balance between soft and hard, between technical skills and soft skills, for instance, that sort of thing. And finding that balance is one of the most difficult things in leadership. So you're based on the situation that you find yourself in, Justin. You may be tracking a little bit too hard right now, but part of that is just perspective on their part because they had it so soft before, as you say. And so it may be that you're perfectly fine with where you're at as far as holding them to a higher expectation. And what's going to happen is their perspective is going to eventually catch up to where you're at right now. Now, what you may want to do to kind of soften the blow and maybe speed it up a little bit is throw them a couple of bones. So it may be that you are a little, softer on something one day, whatever it happens to be for your particular situation. And so that may ease them into it. Now, when talking about a transition like this, especially when you've come into a department or an organization and the standards were not up to snuff, what I do recommend oftentimes to conduct this transition to a more accountable and a more standards-driven environment is to start small and start obvious. So you don't do everything at once. You start with the simple thing and you start with an obvious thing. And so you start there, lock that in, and then work on to something that is a little bit more complicated and a little bit less obvious. I'm pretty sure you're moving them quickly to those standards that you're looking for, and you're creating momentum as well. So that's my big take on that. Rajendra, good to see you here. Saad, good to see you as well. And Evans from Tanzania, good to see you here as well. I actually had an employee named Tanzania is how she pronounced her name. Loved that name. That was great. Next question I received offline is, do you have any advice on how to get a team where everyone eats their lunch at their desk to actually unplug, step away, and refresh at lunchtime? They just aren't open to the idea, even though they admit knowing that it would be best for them, and I believe best for the team morale. So the easy answer to that is you buy them lunch. So it may be that you bring in pizza or salads or sandwiches or whatever it is, and you host it in the break room or in a meeting room if you don't have any sort of break room. That can be it. Or you actually take them out and actually buy it at the restaurant. That's the easy answer. Money almost always makes things easier. The other thing is to set up almost a schedule. All right. So what you're doing is you're kind of easing, talking about Justin's issue there. You're easing them into this transition to eating away from their desk. So it may be that you just do it once a week. Fridays are always the day that pops to mind, because those are the days where everything kind of, breaks down. All the regular procedures break down. So maybe it's Fridays. Okay, we're going to have a team lunch. Everybody's going to eat together. And maybe there's one thing that you can discuss. All right, work related, one thing that you can discuss. And maybe it takes 5 or 10 minutes. And then the rest of the time, everybody can chit chat. And so you start doing that on Mondays. And then on Fridays, I'm sorry. And then maybe you stretch it out. And so you're doing it on Wednesdays and Fridays. And then it's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so you build from there. But you move that transition. You're in a good position in that they recognize that they should probably eat away from their desk. So you've already bought in from a logical standpoint. You just need to work on some of the emotional standpoint or emotional issues that you might run into. So start with that. That might be the way to do it. But make it business related to start out with. It can be, like I say, a simple 5-10 minute topic on something, updates, that sort of thing. That would be how I'd handle that. Saad has the next question for us. I believe you need to be hard when the time demands, and the other times when the workload is not as high, let the team also relax a bit. Yes, absolutely, Saad. You pick your moments. But also, I think it's important not to, and this is that balance, and this is such the tough spot. When it's hard and you're having to push them hard to meet a deadline, that sort of thing, that's the time to acknowledge a small, simple, soft thing. All right, it might be a 5-minute break, a 10-minute break, whatever it happens to be, but something small, just a little something where they can kind of release the pressure. That might be a nice way of doing it. Also, though, when things go a little bit easier, it's important that you still maintain those standards as well. And so I'm not disagreeing with you, Saad. I'm just kind of rounding out that discussion and making sure that we don't go too far on one side or the other when business demands are like that. Because what often happens is things go slow for organizations, and then all heck breaks loose because all procedures break down. Everybody's taking advantage of the slow period. You don't want that either, because that sets you up poorly for the next time that things ramp around. Patty, so good to see you here. You and I need to talk at some point too. It's been too long. So reach out to me. I might ping you as well through email. So as we had some more people jump on here, if you have any questions, drop down into the comment section. Happy to answer any questions in a live environment. Also, for those of you that tuned in a little bit late, I'm giving a shout out to my Single Step Leadership Program. If you haven't checked out those videos, either on Facebook or on YouTube, it's one simple thing that you can implement into your leadership. Doesn't take a lot of time, but what we're doing is tackling one of those every single week, and then we're going to have those things build on your leadership. So lock in one trait, work on one trait, one thing with your team or with yourself, and you're going to see those improvements start building in the months and months and months to come. So Single Step Leadership, check out those videos. Those are great. Next question I received offline was, what to do in a situation where manager has already decided whom to promote or highlight. Manager is frequently appreciating an employee even in situations where he, the employee, made a mistake and then overworked to cover that mistake. So in those situations where the boss has a favorite, shall we say, And I'm going to go ahead and take a logical leap with this, that this person is kind of highlighted for promotion and you would like to have the promotion as well. And what I want to make sure is when you want a promotion, when you want to move up in the company, make sure you have told your boss that you want to move up in the company. If you want something, you have to ask for it. You would be surprised how many leaders are unaware of which of their team members really want to move up in the organization. So have the conversation with your boss. Hey, just so you know, love working here, love the department, and I'd be very interested in moving up into a supervisor or manager role. If those sorts of things come up, definitely put my name in the hat. In the meantime, is there anything I can help you with? And so you kind of direct the conversation. You start asking for things from them, things that might help you get experience for that next step up. The other thing to do in these cases is to learn. Now, don't get me wrong. The person that is the favorite of the boss is often the brown noser, the butt kisser, whatever you want to call it. They're the ones that suck up to the boss. They're the yes person for the boss. And a lot of times that's the case. But many times there are still lessons that can be learned from them. Because I don't want to encourage you to be a brown noser per se, but there are things that you can learn. It may be that that person is one who's always in the boss's door saying, hey, is there anything I can help with, anything I can take off your shoulders? That could be it. It could be that they're more personable. Maybe they're talking to the boss about different subjects, that sort of thing. So find out what you can possibly learn from that individual. The other thing to do in this case is to make sure that you are touting your own accomplishments. All right. Make sure you're updating. Hey, just so you know, I just finished up with that particular client, and this is, you tie these things in together with your boss. So I just finished up with a client. The call went really well, just so you know. Is there anything else that I can help you with? So you're updating them about something that you did really well while asking for something else. And so it doesn't seem like you're just tooting your own horn necessarily. And be mindful of how you phrase that, but that can be something that's helpful to you. So Iman has the next follow-up to this, and that's it, to this basically, and that is, my boss is listening to other managers' feedback and does not consider my side of the story. So Iman, one of the big things when you're talking to your manager, when you're talking to your leader, is to look at things from their perspective. Make sure you clearly understand what it is that they care about. What are the metrics they're constantly talking about? What is their boss on their case about? What are the mistakes that they're looking to prevent? That sort of thing. Make sure you know what your boss cares about. And then what you do is when you give feedback, you make sure that you tie your feedback to things that they care about. So it can be, you know what, I really like to see us change out the printer because the printer keeps breaking in the office. And what we're doing is we're wasting a ton of time with that we could be spending selling to other individuals. And so if they're concerned about sales, you just showed them why replacing the printer can be something that helps increase sales. And so when you want to give feedback to your boss, make sure that you are talking about things in ways that they care about. And that's good advice for communicating with any particular individual. Again, I would ask you to take a look and learn perhaps what it is that the other people are saying and why the boss might be listening to them. There could be all kinds of things. You may be giving too much feedback. And so your feedback is kind of watered down by some of the important things and some of the less important things. But look to learn from what the other people are doing, what they're saying, what they're talking about, and that can help. But really tie it in to what your boss cares about, and that often helps you get heard a lot better. Jiro, so good to see you here. Hey, or Brown Noser, I feel someone who wants to learn, who goes the extra mile, who has great work ethic. Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily, don't know where to take that, Patty. I'll be completely honest with you. Evan says, statistics reveal about 62% of employees leave their job due to bad bosses. We've seen that over and over again. Statistics prove that out because you have a personal relationship with your boss. Now, the comeback that always occurs on these when I start bringing up that people leave and quit managers, they don't quit companies, is that the manager is the figurehead for the decisions that are made above them. And so oftentimes they're the ones that take the blame for what the company has decided to do. And there's a certain amount of truth to that. But your role as a leader is to understand why the organization is making the decisions that it's making and explain that to your team. There is almost always a line of logic to why you would take particular courses of action with a company. And you need to explain that to the team. And it may be that you don't agree with it, they don't agree with it, whatever it is. But you're going to toe the company line on it, and you're going to explain it the best you can. Oftentimes with employees, they may not agree with the decision, but they at least, when they understand why it's made, they can move on. They don't need to win their arguments. They just need to be heard. And so bring them into the discussion, and that's something that can help get your points across to them. And that can be something that helps, prevent you from becoming part of that statistic where the employees are leaving you and not leaving the company. Syed has another follow-up question for us, and it's how to deal with other departments in your company that are not under your direct authority, but trying to slow down your work pace and making your targets difficult. If you write harsh emails or keep their superior in the emails, the relationship sours, for sure, with them for a long time to go. What's the best way to tackle them? The big issue, Saad, is actually not to be pushing them. It's going to be to pull them. So when other departments are slowing down your work, what you need to do is you need to understand why. Why is it that they are not providing you with what you need to do your job better? What is preventing them? And what happens is you start peeling the onion, peeling back the layers of this. So understand why they aren't. Understand what's causing problems, and find out ways that you can perhaps help them. There's almost always a way that you can help them help you. And that would be my big thing for almost everybody who has issues with silos, and most organizations have issues with silos. You need to understand from that other point of view, because I almost guarantee that their priority is not the same as your priority as far as the metrics that they might be measured on or something along those lines. So that's fine, but you can open up a discussion by finding and understanding out about them first, their issues, and then hopefully you create a dialogue where you can find a way to help them. Or maybe it's just a simple matter of they understand your situation better, and so they're willing to make some adjustments. But it's really a breakdown in understanding, Saad. So fight that breakdown first and foremost, and then see whether there is something that you can do to help them help you. The simple way of tackling that, not always so simple. Next question I have received offline is, what should be my strategy if I'm a new manager? Say first 3 months and then more long term. So if you're a new manager, or if you're coming into a department for the first time, coming into a new organization for the first time, the real key is for you to understand the business first and foremost. You need to be asking questions of the team, your boss, your peers, and getting a lay of the land. I understand that you probably have some great ideas that you want to implement right away, but I would ask you to put those on hold, maybe just for a week or two, to get some information, because that information is going to help you put in place the plans that you want to. Now, for those of you who have tuned in many times, you've probably heard these 5 questions, and I want you to ask those when you come into a new position. What are the 5 questions? What's the best way to get information is to ask the team. So every team member that you have, ask them 5 questions. What do you see going right in the organization? What do you see going wrong in the organization? Where are there opportunities we need to take advantage of? Where are there problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do a better job? If you ask every single one of your employees those questions, you will get a ton of good information and good perspective. Now, what I would look to do with that is actually still set aside what you want to accomplish, some of the projects and things that you want to put into place. And what you do is you take some of the low-hanging fruit. You got some ideas and some actions from asking those questions. And what I want you to do is take the really easy ones to implement and fix them, address them, and then let the team know that you've addressed them based on the feedback that you've received. What that does is that immediately creates an environment where the team feels like their opinions matter. It creates engagement with the team. It sets the tone for your leadership, and sets the tone in a way that not only are you willing to ask for feedback, but you're willing to take action on it. That's why it's so important, even just the simple things, to tackle those. Now, what you can do is you can take that information and then start looking to implement some of the more important things. And what often happens in this exercise is that those things that you wanted to put into place when you got hired or you got promoted into the job, and those things that you wanted to put into place, those actually get laid aside because from asking these questions, you found out a ton of different information. and more important things to work on and more actionable things. And maybe some of those things you wanted to put into place, you realized were the wrong things to try to go down the route of. Getting that information, setting the tone right away is something that's huge. And so if you start out in an organization, ask those questions, get that information as much as possible. Adjustment for how long? I'm not sure which question. Sorry, I'm coming to this a little bit late, Shahab. I'm not sure which question you're getting at with the adjustment question. I'll tell you what the real quick answer is: constant adjustment. All right. Again, we've gotten into this a lot where it's all a balancing act. All right. From being really firm to adding some soft points to things, to holding them to high expectations, to, finding ways to lift them up when they fall short of those expectations. So adjustments are constantly being made. Rarely are you ever going to have some procedure in place that is rigid. Safety procedures maybe, but even then you can make little adjustments to get more out of the safety procedure. So part of leadership is not being satisfied with the status quo. You need to always be looking to make improvements. That's a leader's job, is making improvements and setting the goals further and setting the pathway to get there, not just being happy with where you're at. So the adjustments that you want to make are almost constant, Shahab. Great comment. I appreciate that one. Next question I had offline was, how do you gather team feedback without it being a negative session about leaders and managers? So let's say you ask those 5 questions I just spoke about before. How do you get that feedback, and how do you turn it so it isn't just a bitch session? Just call it out for what it is. Part of it is, what I want to say is, if you haven't asked for feedback in a while, there may not be a way to avoid it. And that's not a bad thing. Having a bitch session where everybody gets negative for an hour allows them to get it out of their system. Now, you can talk about, the negative situations and fill them in on some of the reasoning and some of the whys behind those decisions and why it's in place, and give them some more color, and that's fine. But realize, if you haven't asked your team for feedback in a while, it's probably going to turn into a bitch session first before it ever turns around. And so that's something that is fine. But what's going to happen is once you get through that session, follow up a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, and have another session. And what you're going to find is that stuff, once they've gotten it off of their chest, doesn't come up as much. And so now it's half bitch session, half productive. And then you do it again a week, 2 weeks, a month later. And then it's 1/4 bitch session, and then 3/4 productive. And you see where this gets different momentum going. Don't look for simple one-off solutions to your problems. Look for something that you can put into place consistently that will allow you to get that momentum going in the right direction. You don't get things right off the bat. You often have to deal with some of the problems, and you might not be conducting a feedback session particularly well to start out with. So it's something that you need to learn how to do better. So that would be my big advice as far as feedback sessions are concerned. Again, any questions out there, drop down into the comments section. Happy to field those questions almost in real time. I've got a few more to tackle that I received through private message on Facebook, or you can always email me your questions if you want to keep yourself anonymous. cm@CameronMorsey.com. You can email me there, or you can always drop down into the comments section and ask there. Even if you get to this video late, I will go ahead and get it on the next episode of Mentor Minutes. Next question is, if one of the team members doesn't respond as like others after several times giving instructions, what to do with him to guide him? Don't as like others. So this gets into it. You may have you have tons of experience in leadership, and you know how to handle a certain situation. But what's going to happen is you're going to find that there's going to be certain individuals that don't respond the way that it has worked in the past. And that's, again, one of those difficult challenges of leadership. The reason that over here in the comments section here, I've got people from all over the world, whether it's Africa, Asia, Australia, North America, Europe, is because the difficult part of leadership is dealing with people. People aren't robots. They aren't in any cultures out there. And so that's the big struggle. And so what's worked before for 9 out of 10 people won't work for that 10th individual. You need a customized approach. And you need to be thinking about this with all of your employees. Yes, there may be a foundation, a standard that you work through with them. And that can be something that is helpful as setting a baseline, but you also need to set it up so that you can be individual with them. There's going to be some people that like a big, bright, smiling, gregarious leader when they're having discussions with them. There's others that might prefer a more cerebral one. You have those people that are quiet in your organization, those people that are more outgoing in your organization. Those are all individuals that you need to address differently if you really want to get your point across. And this is what separates good leaders from great leaders, is that customization of the message so that they can get through to their people and get those outstanding results from them. And next question I received was, at times, despite being a leader, you feel like you are not having confidence. How do I keep the momentum? A good question, because it's tough. And you will go, it's tough because there's just a natural ebb and flow. You're going to have some successes, you're going to have some failures. And so that's just the natural flow of things. And the idea is that you're taking 2 steps forward in your career and in your leadership, and maybe 1 step back. But there's that progress. There's that stair-step progress. Now, what I would recommend for those leaders that start feeling a little bit down is I want you to get in touch with the successes that you've had. What was the biggest success you had over the last 3 months? It might be metric related. It might be sales or profits or something like that. It might be training the team on a new system. It might be training an individual who was doing poorly and now is improving. What was your biggest success that you had over the last 3 months? Now what I want you to do is ask yourself, what was the biggest success I had over the last month? And it has to be a different one than in your last 3 months. Find something else. It can be something small, but something that went well. Now, what was the biggest success I had over the last 2 weeks? Again, something different than last week, then over the last 3 days. And then what was the biggest success I had yesterday? I guarantee there was some sort of success in your organization, in your leadership yesterday. It might have been a positive interaction with an employee who you have a strained relationship, or a peer, or a boss, somebody up. It might be that you squared away a process, that you handled a crisis that was coming up. There are tons of successes around you. The issue is so much for leadership is that we are hyper-focused on the problems and fixing the problems, and that's fine, that's good. But realize that 95+% of what you do and what your team does every single day is a success. If it wasn't a success at that high of a rate, your organization would be falling apart and you probably wouldn't have your job right now. Most customer interactions are successful. Most employee interactions are successful. So most of those things, there's tons of successes. You just have to look at them and change the narrative. And I realize that it's natural to, again, go through a down period where you don't have as much motivation. But this is an exercise that helps you get out of that down period sooner than you would before. And hopefully it's something that helps you from getting quite as deep in that down period down the road. This is also a good exercise, this success exercise. Last 3 months, the biggest success. Last month, the biggest success. Last 2 weeks, last week, last 3 days. It's a good thing to share those with your team as well, because I guarantee if you're going through doldrums, your team's picking up on that, and they are likely to be kind of in a downward, not spiral, but downward period as well. So look to share those successes with your team, and that's something that can help you all get out of that particular funk. Abid has the next question for us, and what would be the ideal way to teach new members and team about discipline and company culture? So first of all, you call it out. So you get transparent. What is your company culture? All right. What is it that you hang your hat on? We want an environment that is fun and we want it to be challenging. Okay, great. You've labeled it. How does what you want your company culture to be translate into how you do your business? Now, this can be a big challenge. All right, because lots of organizations have a company culture that they talk about, but it's not one that they back up. So what are scenarios where the company culture would come to play in day-to-day work? So we want a challenging, but we want a fun environment. So what does that mean as far as customer interactions? Well, it means that we challenge ourselves to upsell them into something else. They buy one thing, we want to sell them a pair of socks with their shoes, that sort of thing. All right, that's challenging. We want to have fun. All right, we want smiles. We want laughter with the customer. That's how it deals with customer interactions. What is it with employee interactions? All right, so I really hit on that culture because that's the part that's missing so much. The other thing that I will tell you, Abid, is that you teaching a new member about culture is not going to be remotely as impactful as what they see other individuals do. So it's something that may need to be a discussion that you have with your overall team. They will pick up on the cultural elements of their peers a whole lot quicker than they pick up on stuff that you've talked about as far as culture is concerned. Now, when we talk about discipline, I'm taking that really to mean expectations. So what I want you to do, Abid, is right away call out the expectations. I tell people that you should include the expectations for the job in the job description when people apply. All right. We expect our team members to sell $10,000 worth of revenue every single day. We expect them to upsell 10% of the time on 10% of the transactions. We expect them to be on the phones 85% of the time of their day. Put the expectations in the job description. Then people are really aware of them. What you do when you follow up, so once you've explained what those expectations are, you tell them how you follow up on them. What are the reports that they can expect to see on a weekly basis that will talk about those expectations? All right. Show them reports. Show them where, take names out and show them where people, rank as far as certain metrics that you're paying attention to. But be clear on that. Let them know how you follow up on it and let them know what the, say, discipline structure is if they're not meeting those expectations. Can they expect more training? Or can they expect some sort of progressive discipline if it's an attendance policy, that sort of thing. But get clear on it. So have the discussion with them, but then show them how it backs up. That's what really drives it home. It's one thing to see things on paper. It's another thing to see them applied to day in, day out work, Abid. And that's what's going to help new members come up to speed as quickly as possible in organizations. Great question. Love that one, Abid. The next question I received offline was, so many things coming at you. How do you stay organized? Very simple. So everybody, it's a chaotic environment out there. Our connectivity that we have through email, through texting, through Skype, through Slack, whatever it is that your team use, that connectivity comes with a downside of, connectivity. And so when you have a ton of things coming at you, a couple of things that I want to keep you focused on, all right? Focus first on your biggest priorities. What are your biggest priorities? What are the things that you want to accomplish in the day? When you're driving into work, when you're taking the train, whatever it is, what are those 1, 2, or 3 things that you want to accomplish in a day? Now, what I want you to do is before things start coming at you, all right, the first 15 minutes of your day, I want you to spend working on those things. Now, you may not finish them. You probably won't finish them. But what you do is you get them started. You get some momentum behind them. And it's easier for you to pick them up at certain points in the day. That's the main thing. So get clear on what your priorities are at the start of your day and work on those the first 15 minutes of your day. Tell your team that you're working on those things and not to interrupt you unless it's an emergency. Tell your peers. Tell your boss. All right? It's 15 minutes. You've had conversations at the coffee machine that took 15 minutes at the beginning of your day. This is not something that should crater the organization at all. So work on those priorities first and foremost. Second thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you are getting things across the finish line that you start. And what you do is we all talk about servant leadership, and I'm a big fan of it, but it does need to be balanced. Because if you are a slave to your team, then you don't get anything done yourself. And so it may be that you just claw out 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I call the concept fighting for 5 because 5 minutes you can handle and get a good jumping off point to a report you were working on, an email you were typing up, a presentation you were getting ready for, that sort of thing. So when people come to you with questions, say, can you hold on for just 1 minute? Maybe invite them in if they're in with you. Maybe if they're on the phone, you leave the phone off the hook and say, I just need 1 minute. If you want to answer emails, go ahead and answer emails. I just need 1 minute to finish up this email or to get to a stopping place in this report. Or if they can't, then say, is it okay if I come back to you in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is? Now, the issue that we all have with that is we've all seen it happen to us in the past. Our boss has said, hey, can you come back in 30 minutes? You come back in 30 minutes. Can you come back in another hour? You come back in another hour. Can you come back in another hour? And then you come back in another hour and they've left for the day. Nobody has a problem waiting for 5 minutes. We all understand the priorities because your team has an issue prioritizing having a bunch of things coming at them. So the only issue is if you don't follow up. So that is a promise that you are making. Hey, I'll come back to you in 5 minutes. I'll give you a call in 5 minutes. Now you better, in 5 minutes, get back to them. Then they won't have an issue with it. But fight for those little periods of time so that you can finish what you've started. Too many times we come to the end of the day and we've got 20 things that are in some miscellaneous state of being finished, and most of those would only take a few minutes to actually finish up and get over the finish line. All right, so fight for those 5 minutes. So the first 15 minutes of your day, work on your priorities. Fight for a few minutes to be able to finish what you're working on in that particular moment. The other thing is to look and make this a challenge for delegation. I know it's a big topic to get into, but these situations are why you train people to do simple and frequent tasks, so that when they come to you, it's something that you can delegate. Now, the other way to delegate this is actually to delegate it back to the person that is asking you the question. Ask them, what do you think we should do? So you get hit with a question. You get hit with questions all the time, and they're questions that people know the answers to. So ask them, what do you think we should do? If they come back with the right answer, then say, yes, absolutely, go forward with that. All right, fantastic. If they come back with a bad idea in how to handle the situation, then you can correct them and give them the reason why your idea is better and what it is addressing. And those are all things that are going to help you keep things off of your plate and get the important stuff done. A harsh reality of the current work environment is that you will never, ever get all of the things off of your to-do list. As soon as you get close to it, your boss will add something, or quite frankly, you will add something that you wanted to get to eventually, but you didn't think you had the time to. So you're never going to get everything off your plate that you want to. But what you can do is you can get the important things off of your plate, and that is a great way to end this particular Mentor Minute. So if I don't get a question here in the next 5 or 10 seconds, I'm going to go ahead and end today's session. Again, if you haven't checked out, and a bead follows up here, you slipped one right in, very good. Sometimes in a meeting with my team, 1 or 2 persons always there to hijack the meeting and turn my topic into another topic, and the rest of them got confused. What should I do about it? I had this come up with a private coaching client, and I'm going to resist the temptation to give that particular advice. Abid, I'd call it out. I'd say, in part of it is I'd call it out, but before you actually call it out, make sure that you are crystal clear on what the meeting is about. All right. So make sure when you send out the meeting request that it is clear what the agenda is and what the outcome of this particular meeting is. You make sure that the title references it. Then what you do is at the start of the meeting, hey, I'm glad everybody's here. We are here to talk about this. And the outcome we are looking for is an answer to this question or a directive on this question. So you start strong and clear. And so when somebody comes in to hijack that meeting, say, hey, that is great, great stuff, but let's talk about that in another meeting. If you want me to reschedule one, I will reschedule it. If you want to take this offline with the other person, then take it offline with the other person. We need to get this. That's the purpose of this meeting. So you've already stated the purpose. Everybody's crystal clear on it, and that makes it easy for you to tell the person to take that next topic offline or to schedule another meeting to talk about that particular topic. Now, the reason you do all of that prep work ahead of time, Abid, is so it isn't as harsh. If you haven't done that prep work of being clear on what the meeting's about in the meeting, in the meeting request that went out and right up front in the meeting, then it can come across as a little antagonistic. Otherwise, it just comes across as keeping the meeting on track. The other thing that I would mention on this to give you a little bit more courage to do this is that everybody sees what's going on. We have all been in these meetings that are called for one thing and end up talking about something else. And there isn't a single individual out there that likes it. So you are doing everybody in the room a favor by keeping the meeting on track. Start strong with it. That's the way to get that across. All right, great question again, Abid. Love that one. So again, if you have any other questions, you can always drop down in the comment section. I will get them on tomorrow's episode of Mentor Minutes, which I think is at 1 p.m. If I'm not mistaken, it's 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow is tomorrow's episode. I'll get them there. If you need to be anonymous, then you can always email me, cm@CameronMorrissey.com. Private message me on Facebook, and if you haven't checked out Single Step Leadership, it is something that's going to change your career trajectory. Check out the videos over on YouTube or over on Facebook. Thanks so much, everybody, and I will talk to you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.